Town Plan and Zoning Commission to order. Today is Monday, February 5th at 6:35 p.m. My name is Robert Klee. I'm the chair of our Woodbridge Town Plan and Zoning Commission. Other members of the commission who are here with us tonight include Paul Schatz, Kathy Hunter, Ben Cherry, Andrew Skolnick, Jeff Kennedy, and our newest member. Hi, welcome, Cynthia.
Thank you.
Cynthia Gibbons, who is our new alternate member. Welcome. Yeah, thanks for joining us tonight. As always, Chris Sullivan is here ably supporting us. She's our town land use analyst and zoning enforcement officer. It's nice to be here in person. And our agenda is available on the town website tonight. And tonight we have 2 public hearings, and as far as we know, we didn't gain any other new business. No. We also have some additional work in our work session. We'll do probably an update on where we stand on our town planning zoning, our town plan for conservation and development, just the RFP that I think went out last week. And if you will indulge me, we'll take an hour at the end to try to get through another bit of our regulations. I think you see at least Chris brought the big book. Cynthia, that will be literally throwing you in the deep end at their very first meeting. So you and Jeff can sort of hang out over there in the corner there. Jeff got his big book of regulations as well. But this is a long update to clean up some elements of our regulations that are dead ends and refer to things that aren't really there. So it's a cleanup function we've been making a slow, steady progress on for quite a while. All right. So today, I guess I'd like to start with our, first up on our agenda is the application by 220 Amity Road, Marie C. Henry. It's an application for the use of that property as a gas station and convenience store according to section 3.3 Y1 of our zoning regulations. Do we have anyone here for the applicant? Wonderful. If you could come forward to the microphone and introduce yourself and sign in. Oh, and if you have, looks like you have boards or something. Do we have any? Might be able to get you an easel. I think we can see that. But I don't know if the folks on the camera would like us to put it in a different place. That's the only thing.
Perhaps.
I'll volunteer.
And our first selectman is going to volunteer to be a human easel, which is really...
Can I use that to just move it back?
Anything you like.
Or you hold it up? Yes, very special for selectmen. Thank you so much.
Yes, please. Yes. And just state your name and who you're representing.
Good evening, board members. My name is Marie Henry. My legal residence address is 475 Town Turnpike, Reading, Connecticut. I am here to represent the project owner, Mr. Kapesh, for the related location at 220 Amity Road. The application is to seek permission to reinstall. We had previously a gas station at that same location that was removed. And I've done research on all the documentations. It was approved, used, and removed. After that, they currently they have a gas station, the mechanic place there, a mechanic shop. So we are before you today to ask permission to reinstall the gas station as is with the location they were in without anything different as far as the way it was approved.
Are the tanks still on the ground?
No, no tank underground. Everything was removed, tests were done, and everything was clean.
And maybe walk us through the process of bringing a gas station back to this site. I assume you'll have to put in new tanks. Will they also be underground tanks?
Yes, that's correct. The approach process, there is a need for a gas station in town, and we've decided to help start that project. Currently, there is no gas station at the location 220 Amity Road. There is no tank. It will be newly done with all the up-to-date technology, and we'll have to do proper construction work with proper allowable certificate of permit to do so. And we'll start from scratch as it's supposed to be, and when it's time for the major installation to a gas station, the vendor will proceed and pull their permit also to do the installation of such.
And that's with the state, right? You file paperwork with the state to have underground tanks and so forth. DEP or something like that?
From what I understood, there were a gas station at this location, and all tests were done and approved. And for the original tab where the gas station used to be there, after they decided to remove it, also tests were done to clear it, and there's no contamination whatsoever. So the ground is pretty clean regarding the state involvement as far as the status is supposed to be. So to redo that, to answer your question, if I have to go to get special permit or permission to do things, yes.
And as part of your application, you're also, or actually correct me if I'm wrong, you're also gonna do an expansion to the existing building and add a convenience store. Can you talk a little bit about that portion of the development?
Yes, sir. With the existing building on site, we decided that we wanted to square it off because we have dead space up front. I call it center based on the proposed addition, and to the left side, because now the existing garage shop is using the entire building, and some section up front is not being used. So we have decided to say, let's put a retail that comes with the gas station at that same location, and this conclude into square up if you stand up front, the right side of it, to allocate proper space for such activity. Yes, for the expansion. It was
And
added.
just one more follow-up question there. This is the existing site is the Amity Motors garage. Are they gonna continue to do the garage work, or is the whole site gonna basically turn into just a gas station without the existing sort of auto repair business? Or are they gonna both continue together?
Amity Motors will still remain. As noted on the plan, it's to the rear. We have a side entrance. The original large carport for the activity to go in and out will be as such.
Additional questions from members of the commission?
I have two questions.
Yes.
So do you know, does the state entity have to give you a permit to dig in the ground and put gas tanks in the ground?
I don't know 100% from what I understood based on the regulation. Before the entire excavation happened, we have to go through the process of getting permitted for such to happen. If the state is involved, yes, we'll have to follow up and include an application for that.
And then, is there a test done after, is there a test, I don't know if you're required to do it by the state or by our regs, but when the tanks are buried and before they put gas in there, are there tests done to ensure that it's safe and the tank is viable?
For the testing, we have tests done and that comes out clean for the soil. When the manufacturer, prior to the installation of the tank, they will also conduct tests that are required because they're going to be dealing with underground gas tank.
Do you know how many tanks now versus how many tanks were there before?
As far as I remember before, and we're going to continue the same size, it's 2 large tank as you enter to the right side of the driveway. That's where the tank will be located.
And what about parking? Unless I'm missing something, is there, if you're gonna have a convenience store that's kind of in front of the proposed addition in the existing building, how much parking is available there?
Based on the minimum parking available, we have satisfied that. But currently, if I may stand,
Sure.
we gonna have parking, where's the front? We're gonna have parking, existing parking on that side, and the driveway goes around. To go this way, we have parking all the way here,
Oh,
and all the way in the back from here.
thank you.
Yes, these are the tanks, the two tanks on that side. And there's a driveway right in the middle.
And those two tanks on the right were the same as that were there before, correct?
Yes,
Okay,
same location,
thank you.
yes.
And will those pumps be directly over the tanks, or will they be on the Amity Road side of the property?
This is the tank, the pumps will be right on the center. There is a driveway that goes around this way, and it will be where the canopy.
My question is on the look of the station in the store. This is in the Village District, and I'm just wondering if there's going to be any architectural design to fit within the scheme of the Village District?
Yes, well, in terms of architecture design, if I understand clearly your question, the existing structure, the building will remain as is, as the style it is. There will be no change in the facade of it. Does that answer the question? Or-
I'm just trying to think in terms of how it blends in with the rest of the buildings that require a certain architectural design to create this Village District, and how that, adds to that.
We will keep the existing standard design that's there, and the addition will match everything as far as the material for the finished product to not appear to be any different. We're gonna keep it the way it looks and continue with the same material and finishes and shape to satisfy. As no change for the architecture design of the building.
Kathy, I actually have a question of, I thought the Village District was on the other side of Amity Road and doesn't necessarily include this side of Amity Road.
I always,
does.
I always think of it in my mind that way, that's interesting.
It does include this, because when,
It doesn't really show on our map that it does.
well, I know that there were other structures that were on this side of the road that were, when the former UPS store was first banked, that went through the architectural review, and they did make changes based on that.
Do we still have that review board, the architectural review board, do we still have that in place?
Yeah. You only use it when you want it. Sometimes you defer stuff to them. Sometimes you haven't.
Just refer it over.
Because, I mean, the appearance of Amity Motors is quite different from the sort of shopping center adjacent to it, and also from the hardware store across the street. I think that's relevant to the answer to the question.
So Chris, the relevant regulations that would apply to this, from section 3.3 is Y, correct, all of that? So all of that apply.
Correct.
Okay, so Ms. Henry, are you familiar with that section of our regulations and the text that's in it?
No, I'm not, but I can definitely research it and make sure I bring myself up to par with the regulations.
Okay,
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there a specific section you were concerned about? Or?
No, I just, reviewed it, just got rid of the material there, and just wanted to know if the applicant felt that they were compliant with what was in it.
So there is one, Jeff, to follow up on your question. There is in that section Y, section 1D,
Yep.
there's a section that fuel pump shall be set back from the street at least 25 feet. Not sure that it's a little hard to tell from the drawing given to us, but exactly where the street is relative is, I think that's a question for the applicant. Are we 25, are the fuel pumps which are gonna be in the front, will they be 25 feet from Amity Road?
I believe yes. Because when the engineering designed this for us, he has to make sure he implement the regulation as to the setbacks will be needed for the gas station pumps.
So you feel it is compliant, it is 25?
I believe so,
Okay.
yes. Because it's the same design we implemented of the previous one that was approved.
And the pumps will be essentially in the same footprint as the pumps previously were?
Yes, sir.
So the only thing we don't know, I mean, I'm sure you will comply, but we don't know if the previous pumps were, could they have been grandfathered in at a less than 25-foot buffer?
My recollection is they were at least 25 feet.
Yeah. Being on Amity Road, the structure is at least 60 feet back from the front property line. There's a different front yard setback on Amity Road for whatever reason, for buildings. And so, I'm not sure. There used to be a gas station a long time ago on the other side of the street. I'm not sure that this gas station antedated the zoning regs, because the zoning regs started in 32.
Maybe they're feeding the horses there?
What we didn't originally have as comprehensive a set of zoning regs as you have now. So the zoning regs regarding gas stations, I believe, came in when they updated regulations back in 1963. So I could research that and let you know.
But if we're, I mean, Ben and I are looking here and we're guessing that it looks like the pumps are 25 feet away, but it doesn't show up precisely on your, on the schematic, the proposed site plan that we have. So if you could confirm that with.
On this board, on the site statistics, it shows all the setbacks information, including, I can bring it closer.
Yeah, but I know it says front line setback was proposed at 34 feet, but the only thing that shows up in our regs is where the gas pumps are, and that doesn't, it's a little hard to tell. And I'm not always good at reading these site
Is
plans.
there a scale on that one?
There's a scale, you don't have to go. This is 20 feet is there.
So it's 1 inch equals 20 feet, and I can't tell you that they are 25 feet back.
So the island is, oh yeah, the island, so I mean, if the scale is correct here, the island looks like it is about 35 feet from the pumps.
No,
Both sides of the pumps. So you see
there's
how
a setback which is owned by the state.
I see. From the island.
So this is owned by the state. The property line starts here.
So this is only 5.8 feet from the property line, this part of the pumps. That's another, that's not here.
Well, these are the pumps.
Right, I
And
see,
what,
I see.
based on this one, which is a larger scale than what you have there, it's 1 inch equals 20 feet, and this is barely an inch. So I would just
Yeah.
split up my rule here.
I think what's confusing here is that the scale is not quite right. This is 38.2 feet, and then that other line is 5.8, and that's not 5 times as wide as.
The 5.8 feet is from here to here,
Yeah.
and that is, well, I don't know, but it's
So you can
5.8.
repeat it 3 times to get to the
Yeah.
pump, and it's not 25.
So-
Yeah, that needs to be resolved.
We could ask the question to the person who created the plans to verify the measurements and make sure that the pumps are 25 feet back. It's just eyeball scaling it, it doesn't look like it's 20 feet back from the property line.
And it's from the property line, but this says fuel pump shall be set back from the street at least 25 feet, not from the property.
Well, then that's a call you have to make, because the street can vary. You know, historically, the street's been the width it is right now, but as shown on that site plan, it could go wider.
Oh, because it could go,
It could go further and closer.
I guess I would like to know, currently from the street where it currently resides to the pumps, is that greater than 25 feet? If it is, I'm fine.
From the paved portion?
From the paved portion of the curb on the street. Kathy, I do want to come back though, are we clear though on the village district, whether it would?
Let me read it right. I'm sorry, I don't have it.
And my thought is, that it is part of the village district, that we should refer it to architectural review. Because I think the original building was prior to that being enacted. And so you're gonna have buildings that are not in conformity.
Do you know how recently the village district architectural standard was adopted?
It was in 2006.
It's not incorporated, so it's here and on this side of the street. No. No, this is in, right here. This is Lucy Street, that's not in it.
It's just above Landon.
So Landon Street comes right in here. It's right here. Because this is the Willows and then this is Bradley Road, right this right here.
That was close to Bradley. No, that's across from
The trailer, the place that sells trailers and then Serve Pro and then ambulance.
And the village district covers,
That side of the road. Yeah. So if you're gonna have the, person who did the site plans verify the distances for you, you would have time to review it, refer it to the architectural review board if that's something that you would like done. Because they have to be able to give you input within 35 days, so they can convene and get back to you for your meeting in March.
so this is something we could decide in our deliberations, or should we decide that?
If you were going
We
to
haven't
have,
had our public hearing yet.
yeah, you need that record in your public hearing, so you'd have to continue the hearing. And then accept their report as part of the hearing record, if that's what you choose to do.
Is there a public hearing requirement with respect to the site plan?
There's a public hearing with respect to the gas station.
Yes, we're having that. That is what we're having now. Is our public
The
hearing.
site plan approval is not subject to
I didn't think so.
a
Okay.
public hearing. The gas station.
Ms. Henry, are you an attorney for the owners, or are you an architect or developer, or are you with the developer working with the owners, and what is your role in that?
At the moment, I'm a consultant that help or assist with the hearing of the gas station.
Understood, okay, thank you.
So, other questions from commission members?
Did you do any traffic work at this point and I'm not even sure if that applies, Mr. Chairman, if we could even raise it, but I was wondering, since it is a gas station, people will be pulling in and out a lot. So did you folks do any traffic work or see if there were any traffic studies in the nearby area that you could take a look at and comment on?
To my knowledge, I have not, but I can refer back to the engineer because he's much more knowledgeable in this to respond to that.
Other questions from commission members?
I just want to confirm, are we asking for a traffic study, or we're asking whether or not there was, because I know it was a prior gas station, whether or not there was other traffic studies. But, I mean, but things have changed, and I don't know if that's a concern, because it is a main road, and you're pulling in and pulling out, and it gets busy certain times of the day. I don't know if that's something we should consider.
It's a state highway, so the state DOT has input on access in and out of sites. Certainly, we will also have the ability to indicate a traffic study. Normally, it hasn't been done for something that has a lesser amount of traffic like this. It's been done more for toll brothers and things with larger amounts of traffic flowing in.
And we do have plenty of commercial, there are currently already an active commercial location, there are commercial
Very much
locations
so.
all along that sort of line.
Very much
So
so, yes.
it's unlike we're adding, 70 new apartment units.
And it was a gas station for decades and
I think it was a gas station recent, I mean, 10 years ago.
5 maybe.
No.
No, I think it was gone before COVID, but even so, I mean, I don't think it's generationally different traffic flow than it was somewhere between 5 and 10 years ago.
Right, so it sounds like we're narrowing down, we want a confirmation that the pumps are gonna adhere to our 25-foot distance from the road curb where it currently sits to the pumps. We need that piece of confirmation. The last piece that we don't, is this something that we would want to send over to the architectural review board or not? And I'll note that sometimes that makes it difficult for anything to happen down there whenever we send anything to the architectural review board. It may not be active here, he said, but past experience has shown that we've ended up losing opportunities for development because
Then in that case, I wouldn't be in favor of it, because it's, right now you can go there, have your car repaired, and it was a gas station, it will be a gas station. So I don't feel that we would need that. If other people feel differently, they can speak up, but I wouldn't advance it.
Is there a regulation that requires that?
It's an option that you have as commission members because the property is in that given overlay district to do so. Hasn't particularly been done when you're doing smaller additions such as this where the bulk of the building is remaining. It's been done on larger projects.
Chris, that is actually an interesting point. They are making a small addition to the existing building. Would we even be allowed to say, and you have to make the entire building now look like a shaker roof, quaint country village gas station?
That's your call.
I would personally say that'd be overkill to try to reach you.
I agree. I also don't feel the need to request a traffic study. I just wanted to ask if the applicant had some information we could consider, but again, with Paul's comments and others, it was a gas station before. It's a busy commercial street, which people are already aware of.
On the other side of your materials here, you have the appearance of the canopy.
Yes.
This is a sample of it, not the exact canopy. Could bring it closer, center.
Will it be a medical station?
I do not know at the moment what the name will be.
But I say representative.
Yes.
So that doesn't signify anything, the fact that it says more than once.
I think this is just a sample of what the canopy will be like.
Any additional questions for our applicant? Seeing none, hearing none. Thank you very much for coming in front of us and for your presentation.
Thank you.
I'd now like for us to move to the public comment portion of this hearing.
Should I leave this in case they need to look?
You can leave it for a few minutes, because we'll see if there's anyone from the public who wants to make a comment. Thank you. So, this public hearing on...
Sure.
Now we actually get to see our members of the public. So, the purpose of this public hearing is for listening to the comments of the public. Anyone interested in making a comment will have up to 3 minutes for their brief statements into the record. Our members of the Town Planning and Zoning Commission and the applicants will not be answering questions that might be raised by any members of the public. The public statements and any written comments that were submitted to the town will become part of the public record for our consideration of this application. Chris, did we receive any written
No, we
comments?
did not, nor did I get any phone calls inquiring about it.
Thank you. So as a reminder to everyone, as part of our rules for public hearings, off-the-record communication with members of the commission on the merits of any application are prohibited. So please try to keep your comments brief and focused on the site plan approval for this gas station, and avoid any unreasonable repetitions so we can hear all concerns raised by you and your neighbors. So I'd now like to call any members of the public who'd like to come forward to offer public comment on the application for a gas station at 220 Amity Road. I'll ask again, any members of the public who wants to come forward for the application for 220 Amity Road? Going once, going twice, third time, any members of the public? Seeing none, thank you very much. So now among the members of the TPC, we need a motion to close our public hearing of the application
Are you
for...
gonna hold it open,
Oh.
or do you wanna close the hearing on the gas station and defer action on the site plan?
No.
What's the advantage of not closing the public hearing?
You were asking for information on the scale of where the pumps are.
So if it was approved, can't the motion be that it's a approval pending confirmation of 25-foot buffer?
It's
Compliance with the regs,
it-
yes.
It could be subject to compliance with the
Okay.
provisions of section 3.31 Y1.
I think that might be the most efficient way.
I'm in favor of that.
I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion on closure of the public hearing? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any abstained? Any objections? Any objections, any abstentions? Seeing none. And who are we seating today?
Maybe. Whoever you want to see.
How many do we need to seat?
You only need to seat one.
Okay. So Cynthia, if you don't mind, since this is your first go-around, we will not seat you today. We'll see one of our other alternates so that we get a sense of the flow of how we're doing. Good?
Oh, that's fine.
All right. So that public hearing is now closed. Thank you very much to the applicant. We'll take up your application in our work session, which will come hopefully shortly. Next, I'd like to move to our second public hearing of the evening, and this is a public hearing, and apologies, as my papers get spread around, I usually bury my actual agenda. Our next public hearing for the night is the application of the Bethwood Baseball League for a special exception permit for the placement of a sign at 85 Acorn Hill Road Extension. Do we have anyone from the applicant who's here? Yes, we do. If you'd like to come up to the microphone, introduce yourself, and then you can go ahead and talk to us about the sign that you hope to place at 85 Acorn Hill Road Extension.
Yeah, my name is Dwight Rowland. I live at 102 Luciani Road in Woodbridge. I've been associated with the league in 2024, going on my 40th year, so it's been quite a while. And I'm here representing the league tonight to request your authorization for us to install a permanent 4-foot by 8-foot sign at our Acorn Hill extension adjacent to the landfill, adjacent to the transfer station. We don't have a permanent sign right now. Most of the ballparks in the state that we visit throughout the year do have entrance signs and whatever. We don't have one right now. We have a family in town who was very close to Brian Luciani. Brian was a major part of our program for many years. He was an officer in the league, coached, and whatever. And we have a family in town who is offering to donate this sign in Brian's memory. So that's real. One of the reasons we're here. We don't have a sign. It'd be a great addition to the ballpark. And we understand there are limits to the size of the sign. That's why we're here tonight. So.
Excellent. Thank you, and members of the commission, hopefully you've had the copies of the sign and its sort of location and
Yes.
a schematic.
Approximate location.
Any members of the commission who have questions regarding what seems like a really nice and reasonable sign to
To confirm or clarify, it will not be a lighted sign?
It's not going to be lit. I've already checked with the Parks Department. I talked to Adam Parsons. There's no mechanical, electrical in the ground there, so we don't have to worry about hitting anything like that. And he's okay with the installation of it being in that general area.
Other questions, reactions, other than this may be an area for us to figure out why we actually have to have a public hearing.
It's one of those signs that fits under the 4.6.
I don't.
If it was neon, we would have to discuss it, Mr. Chairman.
We were here about 20 years ago or whatever, because we had to go to planning and zoning because we were putting up 4x4 advertising signs on our outfield fences. So we ended up coming to get that approval here, which we had, so. And now we're back with this sign.
Any other questions for the applicants? Seeing none, hearing none, thank you very much.
You got it.
Good to see you. And keep up the good work out there
Thank you.
with the league. Next, we will move to the public comment portion of this public hearing. I will again repeat my normal spiel. The public hearing is for the purpose of listening to your comments. You'll each have up to 3 minutes for your brief statements into the record. As I said earlier, our TPC members and the applicants will not be answering questions that may be raised by the public. The public statements and any written comments that were submitted to the town will become part of the public record for our consideration of this application for the special exception permit for the sign for the Bethwood Baseball League at 85 Acorn Hill Road Extension. Chris, were there any written comments received by the
There
town?
were no written comments and no phone calls inquiring about it.
Thank you. A reminder to everyone in the public that off-the-record communication with members of the commission on the merits of an application is prohibited. I ask members of the public to keep their comments brief and focused on the proposed special exception permit and avoid unreasonable repetition. So I'll ask, is there any members of the public who would like to give public comment on the application for a sign at the Bethwood Baseball League fields? I will ask again. And I'll ask one more time, and I'll do it my 3 times quickly this time. So hearing none, we will I will ask for a motion to close our public hearing on the application for a special exception permit for the Bethwood Baseball League to construct their sign at the ball fields at 85 Acorn Hill Road Extension.
So moved.
Second. Who wants it?
I'm giving it to Ben.
All right.
He hasn't had a chance.
Moved and seconded. Any comment on closure of the public hearing portion? Hearing none, all in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? So our public hearing is now closed. Thank you very much to the applicants. Thank you to everyone for that application. So we can now move to our work session. Again, we have no other new business, correct?
No, no, no.
Okay, so we'll do things on the order of our agenda. So we will return back to the application of 220 Amity Road as part of their site plan approval, and their interest in having a new gas station under our regulations 3.3.Y1 for the use of 220 Amity Road as a gas station, returning it to its former use. I think I'd be willing to entertain a motion to approve the application subject to confirmation that the gas pumps comply with the zoning regulations, including the 25-foot setback from location of the road. And because I just said all that, I'm happy to make that motion.
Can I ask just one more question? This is probably not relevant, but hasn't the Phillips been sort of the site of an unusual amount of crime?
Ben, could we,
Oh, yeah.
well, we have a motion, can we have that in our
Sure.
discussion?
Oh, yeah, sure,
Yeah.
I see.
So moved and seconded, so any discussion on
I see.
the motion before us? Ben?
Thanks. So the Phillips, I mean, unless I'm mistaken, and I don't know if it's because of the proximity to 15, but hasn't there been an unusual, sort of for the area, amount of crime at that gas station? And is it something about the location? First of all, am I mistaken about that? And second, is it something about the location? Is it something about the business type? Do we have any insight into that?
It's the location.
I think it's location.
I don't have any.
I don't have any data to contribute. I would tell you, there's other stores that would be susceptible to crime along and near where the gas station would be going, such as a Subway, a restaurant, a cleaners, cash businesses along that area, so they would be susceptible to crime as well.
To the best of my knowledge, aside from our banks, which are very popular for people to visit when they
Few
first
that
open
left.
and take illegal withdrawals from, I'm not familiar with much occurring on Amity Road in this area. I think it may be because it's an easy on-off route that you see some more activity at the Phillips station. But it's not uncommon, when you watch the news, there are many other gas stations throughout the state that have been experiencing the same type of things with carjackings and so on. I don't think it's a reflection on the ownership of the gas station, I think it's just where it is.
No, I think the question in my mind is, do any other additional public safety controls need to be engineered into this project? And I can't think of any. I just wanted to kind of open that idea for discussion.
I'm not sure I'm not sure what sort of controls we would have in our sort of approval role of this application to sort of add. I think all businesses in this line of business are cognizant of the sort of uptick in, in the news, people, going after ATM machines or doing other sorts of things. That's not something that we can really dictate in our sort of limited purview of our statutes and regs. Are they complying with the distance? Are they complying with the setbacks? Is it, so those sort of things. I don't think we have other tools at our disposal.
The Phillips station, when it was approved, because this particular gas station is gonna maintain a repair aspect to it. And because it maintains a repair aspect to it, it doesn't require a kiosk where people can pay at the pump versus the Phillips station, which was solely converted to a convenience store, which exceeded the area that was allowed within your regulations, which is limited to 33% of the gross floor area of the building, did require a kiosk. And I have to say that that's deterred anything, from happening there. In this case, the pumps are located very close to where the building is, and I'm sure that most gas stations will be able to pay at the pump. So it's just, we all just have to be aware, I think, when out there. That's all.
So, any other discussion on the application? I do, frankly, not having remembered when it was a gas station, it does seem like a fitting sort of reuse or return of this property to a former use, so it's not sort of out of its sort of lane that it had been one before, it's just returning to one now. It also, I do like that it's continuing to be an active sort of repair shop. It seems like they're always busy and active there, and Andy Motors is an institution in the Woodbridge area, so it's nice to see that they're continuing to do.
I do note if you look at section Y within here, there's a lot of references to boats. And that's because at one point, this particular site was also a place where boats were sold. Because one of the owners was very active in boat racing and also sold boats here. So when you look at your regs and you see that in this section, that's why that's in here. It's specifically related to this site.
So
But I don't think you're selling boats now.
No boats.
No boats.
I haven't seen. Any other reactions or comments on the motion before us?
My only comment is, I certainly wouldn't want to do anything that's going to obstruct, development or commercial development. But, there's a reason why they came up with the village district and the architectural review, and if that process is not working, if it's a process that's killing development, then maybe we should entertain in the future, maybe reconfiguring the process, because I think the whole idea is to try to create a look and feel for the town that's making it appealing. And I'm just wondering if there's something that could be done, the canopy or the storefront, just to make it blend in with the rest of the buildings. If it's not going to be a deal breaker or prohibited by cost for doing these renovations, but if there's, something, or even incentive by the town, if you're trying to create a certain vibe, look of the town, that, there's a reason why that was instituted to begin with, and now we're just saying, well, it's okay because it's, going back to the way the building was previously, but that was, the building was built previous to the village district, architectural design coming in. So that's my only thought. It would be nice to see whether or not there's something that they could do, and if it's cost prohibitive or it's gonna kill the deal, we have to consider it.
So thoughts, reactions on that?
If we refer to them for comments, is there any binding nature to their comments or requests?
They're an advisory committee to you, so it goes to them. They're actually missing 2 members at the moment, so normally the makeup was 5 members, 3 architects, 1 citizen, resident from the area, and 1 business person from the area. And because they've met so many people over the years, unfortunately, there's been the passing of 2 members that were never, those vacancies were never filled. So as it stands right now, there are 3 architects that are, serving on that.
So, Kathy, I think it's a really sort of valid and important point that we have this overlay that all of us have inherited, don't really feel invested or sort of, excited about, and I think this is one of those things that we, not necessarily in this particular application in front of us, but it raises this sort of challenge of what are we doing with this district if we're frustrated by it or it's not serving a purpose, or are there different and better approaches to this that other towns have done that don't necessarily need an architectural review board sort of weighing in on projects, which to me always ends up delaying things and causing sort of things to drag out versus are there some basic principles or other sort of designs code that could develop or
Form-based codes?
Which is our other problem here. So I don't know if I have a good answer, other than I'm not inclined in this case to require an application of a form that I don't think we even have an aesthetic that I know that we're even striving for at this point.
I think we've used the architectural review board previously, I remember correctly. I think it might have been connected to a brewery application. There might have been another reason that one came before us, but I've seen it a few times, and it was helpful. We did take the data they put before us. We don't have to do anything with it, but I think it informs the decision. I think it informed the public discussion about it. In this case, it's a limited scope and project, and it already has an existing footprint and so forth, and it is a return for previous use. I think it would be less useful, but I do like having that as an option if we need it, when there is an architectural point that would come up maybe for a larger building or a bigger development, it could be useful. But here, again, we're going back to something that it always used to be. I wouldn't want to hold up the project for it, but the existing building has a nice look to it, and I imagine they wouldn't depart from that. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
The reactions?
Just procedurally, Kathy, are you offering an amendment to this motion? To the, consistent with your comments? In which case, Mr. Chairman, I think we would have to vote on that amendment separately.
It was really, I just brought it up in terms of what are we gonna be doing about architectural review? Is this just a non-functional procedure in place that we're just never going to address? And maybe we should just address it one way or the other, but I just feel sometimes we're subjective sometimes.
Yeah, and so I think, to me, that's one of the things that we should have on our list of as we're looking at our regs holistically, is this something that we still want, and in what form do we want broadly in this sort of, particularly our views of this whole part of our town. I personally didn't, and it's still hard to tell on this map, I don't even know exactly what properties are covered by
Give you a
it.
bigger map.
My eyes are just getting worse and worse as well. I don't know where it actually applies anymore and how far it should apply.
I mean, it has been used in the Dev 1 zone, so 245 Andy Road went through an architectural review. The original development that was proposed where Toll Brothers is now going in went through an architectural review. The brewery went through an architectural review. I believe the Phillips gas station also went through the architectural review, where the UPS store went through an architectural review. And that one was rather cute because originally, I think that was a Boston market. So they did make subtle changes to the storefront, but that was the whole building that they were looking at. I don't believe that the trailer, where they sell the trailers ever went through. That was more having a little bit of landscaping in front as much as you could, because the building wasn't changing per se. So I mean, it has its uses. That's a call you have to make, and it's also something you can review within the town plan update, because the village district is part of it.
So back to this narrow question, Kathy, we can formally address it in this one. If you'd like, we could entertain that as an amendment to the motion and vote on whether we should send this property to the architectural review board or not, or.
Well, I get the sense from the commission that there isn't an inclination to do that, and I, again, I don't wanna hold up progress, I'm just bringing it up as a point, so I'm okay with letting go.
Okay. But I think we should have this on our list of things that we're addressing, either in the plan of conservation and development or in that sort of next iteration of what this should be for this district to actually have a functioning architectural review board if we want. Okay. Any other further discussion? Any motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. So the motion is passed with that requirement that we confirm that it complies with the setback requirements.
And other conditions set forth in line, because
Okay.
there is the 33% floor plan, which I'm pretty sure it does comply with also.
Okay. Great. Thank you all, and thank you, commission members. So next up in our work session is the application of the Bethwood Baseball League for a special permit, a special section permit for a freestanding sign for their baseball fields. Do I hear a motion?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion from members of the commission?
No.
No, this is a really nice sign.
Nice sign.
You should construct it forthwith, in time for spring season.
We're almost there.
I know.
We're getting there.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good one. See you guys later.
Alrighty, so we have gone through our public hearings and our work session. We're gonna work on cleanup. How late can folks go for our cleanup of regulations? I asked for like 8:30. Is that too much? Okay.
How about 8:15?
8:15. Good negotiation.
Could be at 8:15, Paul, or is it?
You negotiating with me, Jeff?
Okay, before we get there, do we have any report from Andrew from our Southern Connecticut Regional Council of Governments?
Mr. Chairman, if you would allow, if you pass me for
If you-
the moment,
yes.
and I'll look up the email, because I didn't bring the paperwork.
Kathy, do you have any updates from our town's housing committee?
Sure, a couple things I'll mention. Well, our next meeting is Wednesday, and we did invite Tim Austin, who's part of the Woodbridge Trail Stewards, to do a presentation on the town's greenway. And we just thought it would be important for the housing committee to have an understanding of the greenways, so we could work in a complementary fashion, and truly have, housing and open space, work together. And I also wanted to report that the town is gonna be posting an RFP to secure a consultant firm to write a small cities application. And I think I've been talking about, we're trying to get planning capacity to help implement the housing plan. And so the application will be for providing planning capacity to help implement the housing plan, as well as replenish the homeowner rehab program, because we learned that there was a waiting list for that, and this is part of the small cities application process where we could ask for more funds to replenish that, and that would be good for seniors who are struggling to stay in their homes, if they need help with some home improvements, they'll be able to have that. And I just wanted to also report, I attended a summit on land use and affordable housing in Hartford, and I was pretty encouraged that there seems to be a recognition that state policies are sometimes conflicting, and they're making an effort to get on the same page. So I thought that was very encouraging. Like, for example, there's like a state policy, the state wants to preserve as open space 21% of land, which a lot of folks in Woodbridge say, well, we have to preserve as much land as possible in Woodbridge for the sake of the state's goal, but there's a reckoning that, you know, if a town like Woodbridge only has 1% affordable housing, then perhaps they should be focusing on the housing aspect, and not necessarily be so concerned with preserving more space in Woodbridge. So I thought that was positive. And that's about it. So I don't know if anybody has any questions.
So how soon do you think you would get the consultant on board, or is that?
Well, it's a process. So the application would go in probably like in April, May, and the state would approve it for, you know, before July 1st, but they never get around to contracting probably till August, September, so it would be until a little later on in the year. But I should also note that the state also hired, is going to be hiring a planner that is also going to be working to help towns like Woodbridge in their planning activities. So there's a couple areas where we could like really tap into some resources to get this work done. Because again, we're just like a volunteer commission, and there's only so much we could do, and we're not going to be experts in writing, you know, zoning text amendments and things of that sort. So we're going to get all that help we can get.
But that is a state resource for all 169 of our towns.
The DOH position is a resource for all of the towns. But the SCROG, of course, is a resource. SCROG actually helped us with providing us grant assistance resource to help with the RFP process and to help, you know, secure a consultant that was, you know, through SCROG assistance. So that's, you know, for our area.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. Any questions for Kathy? If you're not, Andrew, do you want to go next, or I can
Sure.
go to Chris?
No, I'm ready now. So, at the meeting on January 11th, there were 3 action items, 2 from the city of Milford, one with respect to minimum parking requirements for restaurants, proposed changes in that regard, and the other with respect to flood hazard and flood damage prevention. And the third was from the town of Southington, which is adjacent to this SCROG district, and it involved proposed zoning text revisions to their pedestrian bicycle accessibility. With respect to all 3 of them, they were not found to have any adverse intermunicipal impact, nor pose any threat to the environment of the Long Island Sound. And in addition to that, there were new officers and members of the executive committee elected. Regretfully, I am now the vice chairman, which is a 2-year commitment, and that could possibly exceed my current post here, so they will have to potentially replace me.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well done, Andrew. Any questions for Andrew? Hearing none. Chris, do you want to give us both the update for as your zoning enforcement officer, and then maybe while you're there, an update on the RFP for the
Well, I have nothing to report to you regarding zoning enforcement. It's been fairly quiet, which is nice. I did have someone else who came in today who will be looking to do an ADU in the garage. So the path continues for the use of ADUs. with the RFP, it did, as far as I know, it went out on the first. So thank you all for, reviewing it and looking at it and whatnot. So now the next step is to wait and see who we get to respond. Tony Genovese, is posting it on all the municipal sites where it can go and so on and so forth, and we'll just go from there. I did do your budget review with the joint Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance, and did remind them that while there's a $20,000 placeholder in the budget for this year for the commission, or the coming year, that will more likely than not go up based on what you get in for responses regarding the plan. I believe the last time the plan was done, it was $63,000 that was spent, so we do have $20,000 in this year's budget to put towards that, and then the 20 that's already earmarked, so there would be more, whatever it may be. And as far as I know, everybody, Board of Selectmen wise, Board of Finance, and Finance Director are on board with that, because they understand that the plan has to get done. That's all we got.
Should we deal with the correspondence received, or?
Yeah, the only thing that we had that was out there was, the copy from Robinson and Cole. This is nothing that you need to act on. It's just something that comes through so that if somebody notices something happening with these existing towers, or they're just adding something to it, it's not a new tower. I also sent you a copy of the, I think I sent you a copy of the, thing from the, Connecticut Federation of Planning and Zoning Commissioners. It was their latest newsletter, and of interest in that, one of the court cases that was cited was, that there was an appeal by the residents around where the cell tower's been proposed up on 118 Newton, where that was, decided against the residents. They were citing, maintenance of rural character, and it was found that, that was not something that the need to have better, cell phone reception outweighed whether or not there was a cell tower that was visible. So that's in that one. So that's why those, I like to send them out to you, because there are court cases that are sometimes relevant to what's happening around town.
Thank you. Alrighty. Other than a minutes approval, I think we've done
Just a minute.
all of our business. Should we do business while we're here, so we can dedicate the last half hour or so to the update to our regs? So we have in front of us, folks should have the minutes from January 2nd, 2024. I'll make a motion to approve those minutes from January 2nd, 2024. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion, comments, edits, changes to the minutes? Seeing none, hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes of January 2nd, 2024, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? You weren't here, you can abstain if you want, Paul.
Thank you, I appreciate the instruction. It is my first rodeo, so I appreciate that. I will abstain.
Thank you, Paul. So minutes are approved with one abstention, Paul, who was not there. All right, so folks ready to go into our,
Where did we leave off?
yeah, Chris, I don't know.
I think in the minutes, I wrote down, I was trying to be accurate. Hang on a second, let me go back. We concluded at section 4.3.
Chris, what page is that, please, in the non-Shannon work on that? Do you know what that would be? Like an article, right?
So Cynthia, this is this long standing.
Did you say 4.3?
4.3, yeah.
Oh, okay.
They're doing the fun work. We just,
In the section with the notes in it, it's page 131.
Without the notes, Jeff, I believe it's 108.
Thank you.
And I do know that one of the things that you asked for was the language regarding non-conforming uses, so I included that in the meeting packet.
I know, so well, I might look over the council, thank you.
I'm gonna throw one of these out, the rest of it for Jeff, so I'll get you one.
Thank you. I have the first half.
I know.
Yeah, thank you.
in the first half, you'll have the note, you'll have the notes and everything.
No, I'm changing it as we go, so I haven't made a red one. I'm just making the changes that they decided
I'm better off using that than my little copy.
on. Because what I'm gonna give you is, this was reviewed by Glenn Childer, and so he had comments, so you'll see as they go through it this evening that they're looking at the comments that we made.
Okay.
Okay, so we're in section 4.3, which is landscape standards, and some of the Chalder notes here relate to, it'd be nice if there was a graphic that could help us sort of look at first layers and sort of highlighted first layers and public frontage. And he commented that it's very user unfriendly to separate these provisions from zoning districts.
And again, this is a holdover from form-based zoning that came from here, which is why you have layers.
Which we sort of then setting aside a little bit.
This is part of the form-based zoning that they did, I thought we did all this in,
This was done in 2019, when Leslie Crean was helping the commission to update the zoning regulations. So she took the form-based zoning regs that she had in Hamden and slapped Woodbridge on them pretty much. And there was a mishmash that ended up. So when you see things relating to layers and whatnot, that comes from the form-based zoning regs that were in Hamden.
but they probably have pictures, right?
Of what a first layer and a second layer.
Yeah,
I think
that's
the
all.
original T1 and the things that you struck last time, the T1, the T3 things, I think that had the layers in it.
The transect table.
The
We took that out.
transect tables, yes.
Yeah, that's,
That's the only place that it's shown.
right, but it doesn't actually identify layers or anything.
I mean, it's a useless thing at this point.
So, how is someone going to read these landscape standards and know that they need to have 2 trees per 30 feet of frontage in a first layer, which we haven't really explained to them what that layer is?
There isn't anything to relate it to, that's the whole issue. And that's the problem with these regs, is that they were bundled together, they were revised, and quite honestly, the commission members were getting burnt out reviewing them, and they didn't catch everything. So I don't know if this is something you want to attack right now, or what you want to do, but I mean, it's a comment that he's made.
Well, in keeping with the spirit of us trying to move somewhat quickly through these and really fix errors rather than change policy, maybe we should just move on from that and revisit it. It does need to be revisited because it's ambiguous and it's not defined.
Like, save that for later, like not,
I would say
not
that
try
for
to
later.
delete first layer, because it would result in things that don't make any sense.
Well, if you delete, I mean, this is like.
I mean, what you could say is instead of first layer, what you do have defined within the regs is, the front yard setback. And so does it work if we just insert front yard setback? I mean, the problem is the town is so developed already that there isn't a lot of places, in a sense, that this can apply to.
Yeah, but is this what is requiring, like, the Toll Brothers to put some trees along their front of their property or no?
They came up with a landscaping plan that was far more intense than what these asked for.
It also cross-references section 510, which I know comes later.
510 is a little bit less prescriptive in terms of numbers of trees and layers and whatnot.
510, part of 510 gives you the list of kinds of trees that are acceptable to be planted, which has been helpful to have, quite honestly.
But I guess the question is, do we need section 4.3 at all if section 510 is really covering the things we care about in terms of buffer areas, the front landscape areas, screening of surface parking lots? 510 seems to go through in pretty good detail versus this seems very narrowly focused on planting trees just in this undefined first layer.
It does appear as though 4.3 and 510 are duplicative unnecessarily.
And interestingly enough, in 5.10E, the second paragraph, it says the required front yard except for the driveway shall be landscaped with grass and other suitable ground cover trees and or shrubs for residential districts and the commercial districts.
So I would propose deleting the substance of 4.3, including the title, and reserving 4.3 for future use.
I'm good with that.
I would give it a separate motion for 4.4.
Yeah, we haven't had a full vote for it yet. Is it related or not?
It's the same. Confusing.
It's not only about landscaping. So on 4.3, is everyone okay with 4.3 is now reserved? Okay,
Yes, sir.
good. It always feels good when we start off this.
Taking something out.
Taking something out.
Less is more.
Alright, 4.4. Apologies, I jumped around. Special zone Dev 2. And it's describing the purpose of Dev 2. Why do we have this defined here?
Yeah.
It is,
And you know, what's interesting in a sense, is that it already has mixed uses for playing, learning, and working. Because it's got the tennis thing, it's got where the soccer thing is, it's got the ball field down at the other end, so it's got anchors at both ends for sports, if you want to call it related activities. There's a fitness center that's going to go on part of the building across from animal control. I don't know about the learning and working, but there's certainly working going on there because there's any number of uses. As a matter of fact, we just finished completing renovations to one of the buildings there where there's going to be more research coming back in where the building's been vacant for a while now.
and why does this have its own dedicated section of our regulations?
Originally, there was a concept of potentially having the front portions of those lots converted into allowing residential uses in there. And then that was,
Just in Dev 2.
just in Dev 2. And then that was stricken in part because of the flooding that occurs where that area gets potentially cut off at some points when the West River decides to run out of its banks. And so they opted not to expand residential uses in there, but rather keep them on the other side of Bradley Road where there wasn't that issue of people getting locked off from during storm events. And one of the more recent ones, they had to use a payloader to get animals out of the animal control facility. So it was fun.
Okay.
It's highly descriptive language that isn't in keeping with, it's just talking about the area. So, I don't, we can take it out or leave it, that's how
Yeah, it seems like odd to have it right there
It's just,
where it is.
it doesn't, from what I've seen under development, it hasn't done anything that enhances the uses that are there, the buildings that are there. As I say, we just got one that's been completed and getting its CO, so that we'll have another use going back into it. So the area seems to be thriving in a sense on its own.
And we're not directing anyone to look at this, or
Yeah.
so at some level, I don't know if we're in a cutting mood tonight, why do we have it?
I think that you are,
I am a little bit.
If it serves no purpose.
it doesn't serve a lot of purpose, but.
Is it prohibiting anyone from doing anything this?
No.
No.
And as I say, for the most part, the things that are mentioned in here are already being done.
Done, and we don't do this for any of our other staff special, okay, so I'm in favor of deleting and reserving 4.4 as well. Anyone else feel strongly?
Agreed.
That's fine.
Are we okay deleting this odd description and purpose
Yeah,
of?
if it's, because it's even the placement seems to be out of place.
I
Okay,
agree with that.
so another thing gone.
Now we get into science, my favorite.
Signs, yes.
No.
So the notes from Chalder is that signage regulation should be in the standards section, and he highlights a couple of Supreme Court cases on signs.
That say that signage regulation should be in the standard section.
I don't know what they say, he just sort of highlights that there are Supreme Court cases. One, a US Supreme Court case, Gilbert, which I don't know what that is. And a Milford, Connecticut Supreme Court case on signs. That said, so I think we can skip those comments, because we have our signage regulations, they're here. Do we have any?
So this is where you had, well, I'm jumping ahead. This is where we had issues because of the Chris signs. So you have your prohibited sign thing on page 4.5.
C. These are prohibited signs.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So
I
I don't know how you
have a
wanna
version either.
work with this.
This is just the regulations, and those are, regulations with comments from a consultant that we hired.
Yeah, so we have, so there's a version that has little sort of side notes from our
So that's
consultant.
electronic.
Yes.
But I also have, I can do it in, I can send it to you electronically if you wanna bring a laptop, or I can make a paper copy, or I can do both.
Okay.
Okay, to which?
Let me start with the electronic.
Okay, cool.
Chris, would you please send it to me as well?
I can do that.
Thank you so much.
You're almost welcome.
Send it to me too as well, please.
I will send it
Just
to
send it to the
everybody so
commission.
that nobody is left
We'll
out.
do a resend on,
Yes, we will resend.
yes.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so back to this. Chalder didn't have any comments up to really on the substance of this.
On to page 136.
But Chris, is this, while we're here, something that we could,
This is where, if I understood the stuff that was going on when we were talking about the Chris's signs, that we have some things that are listed as prohibited, but not all things. So in one other section, you said anything not permitted in this section is hereby prohibited. So I think that's the use section where we said any uses that are said are considered to be prohibited. So I'm not asking you to do it now, but that's the kind of discussion you need to, or review that you need to do in this area. So that, because the trap was that the prohibited signs didn't address signs that were up. And so, since it wasn't, we had a section that listed prohibited signs and it wasn't listed in the prohibited signs, was it therefore allowed? Because it wasn't listed in the prohibited signs. Does that make sense? And it sounds like I'm doing a catch-22.
It does, I mean, if we're gonna say as a, principle that, anything not described as an allowed sign is prohibited, we don't need a prohibited sign section.
Yeah, as long as that's what you said, but by having a specific list, which is a list, so you either prohibit everything that's not listed, or you make that list more complete. So I don't know which way is easier for you to roll.
and then we sort of developed for the Chris Farms sign a sort of special sort of pathway for farm-based
Right,
agricultural sort of wave signs,
yeah.
which
For businesses outside of our town.
not necessarily just businesses outside of our town, but for things that are agriculturally related.
So, I mean, I don't know that you wanna rush through this, if you wanna think about, reflect back on when you acted on that application and look at this, because you were asked, poignantly to look at the community as a whole, the BOW area as a whole, and supporting agricultural uses within the BOW area as a whole. Quite frankly, living in Bethany, we don't have any signs for anything in Woodbridge, and as I drive around Orange, I have yet to see a sign for anything in Orange that advertises anything in Bethany or Woodbridge. Why not? And
Yeah, to me, this area requires its own special addition.
you may wanna have something dealing with farm uses.
Yes,
And within, and that may, I don't know how we address it, but that's something a little bit bigger, I think, than just the review.
I don't think it's in this context where we're just looking for sections that don't make
Cleanups.
sense and cleanups and other sorts of things. I don't think we wanna add that substantive section, but we want it on the list of things that we want to address after we get through this process.
So that would be farm and special.
And farm and
Agricultural.
agricultural uses and signs pertaining thereto. So that gets back to, there were no comments until 136, which was highlighted in L, sign design and review procedure.
Can we skip back to prohibited signs for a minute?
Sure.
Do you want to keep that list in there, or just have the simple thing? I mean, 2, in a sense, makes sense. It says any sign legally existing at the time of the adoption.
Can you just, I'm sorry, just tell us where we are?
Oh, I'm sorry, 4.5C, the prohibited signs.
Yep.
So the first one is sandwich board signs, except as they're allowed. because they are allowed sometimes.
Right, so does one just become any signs not permitted by these regulations are prohibited? And just becomes that, and then, because 2 addresses pre-existing signs that became non-conforming because of the sign regulations. So to me, 2 should remain, but 1 is that problematic thing. So we should either be saying, unless it's provided by this section, or any signs not provided by this section are hereby prohibited.
It's probably, I mean, it might be important to do just that, because throughout there's language about what may not be included. It's kind of interesting. So notice, under section J, no sign shall consist of, no sign shall be erected, no sign shall be erected. It's on, there would be a separate section identifying specific types of prohibited signs, but then other sections identifying characteristics of signs that are prohibited.
So Chris, you're proposing prohibited signs that any sign
Not permitted
Not
by
permitted
this section are
is-
hereby
is
prohibited.
prohibited.
Where's the section that says what signs are permitted?
Well, you have the tables, and you've got some description like eleemosynary signs is only in section I,
I and J,
but then the main thing for the signs that are permitted,
and there's a whole table 4 of all the signs allowed in zones without a
out of
permit.
permit, and then you have the signs that are in specific zones with permits. So I mean, the tables direct you to what is allowed and by what process they're allowed.
So this section C on prohibited signs would, the first part could read, any signs not,
It's not permitted within this section are hereby prohibited. Is that simple? Because what we encountered with the other one was because it wasn't listed in here, by default, it was considered permitted.
and then part 2 is anything that was pre-existing of all these rules.
Yeah,
Is
is allowed to remain
grandfathered.
until such time, yeah, which makes sense.
I'm fine with that, because it is odd that we just highlight A-frame sandwich word signs, that's like the prohibited sign. Do we otherwise deal with, I think we already do in the table, talk about what sandwich board signs are allowed.
Right, there are some that are allowed by special exception or for a certain period of time by zoning permit.
Yeah, this is.
Wait, everyone comfortable with this language for C1 and 2?
I'd wanna see it again, which we're gonna get a chance to do, so I would say yes, but I wanna reread it to make sure it's saying what I think.
I think we're in, okay, a good shape. If you're not allowed under these sign regulations, you're prohibited or you're not especially covered.
That appears to be what it
That's
said.
what we're saying, and then, but if you were grandfathered, you're still good. Thank you, Chris. Let's do one more, we have 5 minutes left. But that gets us, I think, through all the way down to sign design and review procedure. You highlighted Woodbridge historic character and tradition.
Yeah, there's a movement to get rid of character.
Yeah.
And talk about historic, physical attributes or things.
Which, I'm sorry, which one are you on?
L.
L.
Number 1.
Right, so you could, on L1, just delete, All signs shall be designed so as to be harmonious and compatible with the architectural character of the buildings or premises to which they refer, period. And just get rid of the end of it, that's about historic character and tradition.
Is that, everybody's
Is that-
in agreement with that?
Solve the
As I
problem.
draw a line through it?
Which they refer to.
Yeah, which is just saying, have your sign fit the building that you're
Yeah.
asking to put it on. And not have this broader historic character and tradition.
The second paragraph in here has been problematic because there's no way to enforce it. And so, okay, so many years
What
back.
is the Woodbridge Gateway Project? I don't even know what
Okay,
it is.
it's along Amity Road.
The short version of what it is.
It's the trees that are along Amity Road, and at one point there were actually plantings along Amity Road, and over time, some of the trees have stayed, and in front of Crest, some of the trees have disappeared. And there was money that was spent on this.
It looked like an effort was made.
An
But you
effort was
can see
made, but there's
that's-
nothing within your zoning regulations or in when that project was done that gave any enforcement so that you could go out and say, wait a minute, you can't trim that tree. And the businesses were saying, with the trees there, you can't see us. So that's why some of the trees have vanished in front of Crest or been trimmed down or whatever it might be.
With respect to the paragraph 1, how is that enforced?
It's not, it's just an aspirational goal.
So if you have the sign that's not harmonious or compatible, nothing you can do about it. No, nothing anybody can do about it.
Well, could we do
It's
something?
a matter of opinion too as to what would be compatible and what wouldn't be.
But there, and some of the signs are as of right, and some of the signs are by zoning permit by me, so you get me to determine what's.
It is odd that this section L is calling itself sign design and review procedure for which we aren't actually reviewing
Right.
according to these requirements.
So,
I guess 3 is actually commission shall only issue a special exception for a sign after a public hearing has been held and demonstration of conformity with section 4.5.
and that's kind of, which, I mean, a
Have to
special
do it.
exception always requires a hearing, and
Sounds like we could just delete this section.
Okay. sounds like a
In
good
keeping with the
idea.
theme of the evening.
Yes.
All right,
Got a few
so we're
things.
deleting.
As unenforceable and not,
Well, I think that was the alarm for 8:15.
yeah, it just almost was.
That's my correct.
Well, can we at least demonstrate that we made it through the table?
Well, you've got a bunch of tables.
Oh, the tables
Or was that
are. Yeah.
You are chirping, you are now horns blazing, it's really signaling that we should stop.
With my son showing me that it's not urgent.
Although, can we get through the table because there isn't really anything highlighted in the table, so we don't thing, and then call it a night?
Well, tell us what the highlight was.
There's like 5 tables.
No.
But there's only one, there's a couple of comments. So, on the type of signs that's permitted, these are, under table 4.4. He highlighted not more than 1 square foot per side. These are supposed to be the small signs that you can get that say hunting and prohibited. So it's just giving a dimension that they shouldn't, they don't need to be 3x3 signs. Does that make sense?
Yes, so this is part 8 of this table.
Right. So that's, to me, it makes sense what it says.
Yeah. I don't see
And I
what the
don't know
problem-
why it's in
So
yellow.
this is on part 8, which is about hunting and trespassing
Yeah,
signs.
those
They
are the signs that you
should
pick up
be
in a hardware store.
small.
Yeah.
I don't see what's wrong with that.
Fine.
So
Keep
we'll
it.
just put an okay next to that. Okay. So then there's nothing on 4.5,
Okay.
nothing on 4.6.
Table 4.6. And table 4.7, there seems to be a cross-reference to 4.5. Should that be an I? No. Don't think so. Sign per tenant.
So you're on 4.6 or 4.7, what number?
Table 4.7, first one, on all signs displaying the name or street address of the owner or occupant of the premises.
1 square foot per linear foot of facade.
One sign per tenant, except as may be allowed by a section that doesn't seem to exist.
Right, so do we just leave it at one sign per tenant?
Yes.
Fine.
Sure.
What would be the reason of an allowance for? What would section, the imaginary section, what might it have said?
I don't know.
Would it be one, could we say one sign per tenant except as accepted elsewhere in these regulations? I mean, is there such a thing? And what would the purpose be? With more occupants? One tenant with multiple entities?
So typically what this has done is allowed, so like in Selden Street, for each one of the
Yeah.
small rentals, it allows them to have a nameplate on the
Right.
door. So that's what it's done.
Are they
Yeah.
sub-lessors?
I don't know what,
I think deleting it is just fine and leaving it one sign
one
per
sign
tenant,
per tenant,
period.
and get rid of this.
The reference that doesn't exist.
Best.
Then there was a highlight to a blank space in 3, so one additional wall sign, projection sign displaying the name of the owner, occupant of the premises.
So, because it was a special exception where I can remember that this was done, was one of the places it was done was where the pharmacy is, or is going on 245 Amity, so that you were coming from Litchfield Turnpike, because it was a corner building, they got a special exception to be able to have a sign on that side of the building as well as on the front. And then the same thing with Saloon, where Saloon has a sign facing Amity Road as well as on the front. And those are the two quickest places I can think of where they were done.
And the highlight is simply that.
But there's nothing in
maximums-
there, but because it was a special exception,
Uh,
you guys, or the commission,
Will decide its
decided
size.
what was appropriate.
Yeah, so leaving it blank is fine. The last little bit of highlight is on 9 in that list, a professional tenant, directory sign identifying tenants shall be allowed, should be located away from the road frontage of the property. One freestanding sign, no portion of the sign shall be more than 6 feet above the average level of the rough grade within a radius of 10 feet. Highlighted rough grade.
So it should not be a difference on the sign.
I'm fine leaving rough grade as is. Vague. And then, apologies, I'm going a few minutes over, but I just feel like we are almost there on this table 4.7, number 11, temporary window sign for a permitted conforming use. There's some parentheses, text added by reviewer.
So he added the thing in the third column. That says this temporary window sign is limited to 25% of the window surface where it's located.
That's fine.
Did he actually add that? Cause
Yeah,
it's,
if I would do it.
no, cause it's in mine.
It's in my original.
I have no
There is a random
Letter T.
Letter T.
I don't know.
He may have deleted the random letter T, which is perfectly reasonable to delete the random.
Okay, so we're gonna get rid of his comment and leave it as it reads.
You can take the T out,
Yeah.
Which,
in the actual regs is 11.
well, I'm going off the list.
Understood.
And then again in 15, there's also text added by reviewer, but I'm looking at the original, it doesn't. There is no text added by anyone. So delete that comment as well. And then 4.8, number 2, bulletin boards and signs on the premises of churches, schools, and similar nonprofit institutions. Maximum number of signs is 1 sign, and the sign should not exceed 16 square feet and may be part of the architecture of the building. And the comment is, reviewer asked if this makes sense. Sure. Sounds like it doesn't make sense.
I'm not sure
Could you
that.
have more than one bulletin board in a school?
I mean, churches sometimes have the signs out front where they post catchy phrases for them, you know, about the.
So are we talking about exterior bulletin boards? Or otherwise
I
it
think
makes
it's the
sense?
exterior
Well, it should
bulletin,
say exterior, because it doesn't make sense otherwise.
because we wouldn't care if they had an interior.
Right.
Right, so an exterior, so add the word exterior bulletin boards and signs. And you're allowed to have one, and it can be no more than 16 square feet.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yep, that's good.
And then the last one, freestanding signs, you have one sign no more than 6 feet in height, by section 5.17. And rear asked if the preference be checked. Traffic, parking, and loading requirements.
Well, 517 also has drive-through window, you know, drive-throughs with drive-through signs and whatnot. I don't know.
Doesn't make sense.
Why don't we just strike 5.17, because if it applies, it does. But it's more important that it, I don't even know that it has to have setback regulations. Just trying to think. Because Starbucks is relocating, it's changing its queue line, so there are more people that are in queue after they've ordered and whatnot, so they're moving the menu board forward closer to Litchfield Turnpike, but it's still at least 10 feet back, which is the setback requirement for front yards. But signs sometimes are within front yards. It's, you know, freestanding sign, you're reading it in the front yard. I don't know.
So I think delete the shall comply with, delete section 5.17, but do you want to keep the applicable setback regulations, because that does no harm to keep that? So it must comply with applicable setback regulations.
So, for instance, then, this is only for T1 and T2 zones, so yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right, thank you all for going a little over time, appreciate it.
Getting there.
We are getting there. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Moved, seconded, all in favor, any discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say
There's so
no.
much in it, right?